may the sun shine upon you, and may you always be loved. Cheers.
This seems the morning to be here. I didn't know there would be mimosas, so congratulations to the happy couple. Well, I'm really excited to be here and sharing this topic. I think as many people in this room probably know, there are a lot of different schools of thought and definition when it comes to intention. But I just have to say, I think the fact that we're all here today with the intention to be intentional, I mean, I think we're halfway there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. The truth is my own kind of relationship and application to intention and intentionality has taken on various forms throughout my life. So while we'll be diving into the practicality of it, I wanted to share just a little bit about my own evolution with intention. So I grew up Jewish in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And while I always appreciated the cultural and traditional aspects of Judaism, I never felt a real connection spiritually. So like many people, I first found my spiritual awareness through Oprah. I was that kid in the 80s that would come home from school, fix my frozen pizza snack, and plop down in front of the TV, just awaiting who her guest would be. Now, at the time, her spiritual programming was pretty sporadic, but she had all the pioneers in the industry. Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Christiane Northrup. And then one day, she had a doctor, and his name was Bernie Siegel. And he was talking about how things like meditation and mindfulness can be helpful for people facing a cancer diagnosis or heart disease. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was captivated, and I had to know more. I begged my mom to take me to the local bookstore to get that book. So while most girls my age were reading Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret, I was reading Love, Medicine, and Miracles by Bernie Siegel. And it really did plant that seed of my intrigue and interest of the mind-body-spirit connection. So that followed me into my 20s, and after I graduated from Indiana University, I moved to the Bay Area. Now, this was at the height of the dot-com boom, the first one, and I worked for a company called Organic, and at the time it was a startup, but it was one of the first creative digital agencies, and we were creating first-generation e-commerce systems. The whole Bay Area was just this hotbed of innovation and creativity, and just a really exciting time. But it was also a time of real spiritual exploration for me. So my friends and I, also curious soul seekers, would explore every facet of the spiritual mecca that we considered San Francisco, from acupuncture to astrology to feng shui to crystals, Zen Buddhism, psychotherapy, you name it, we did it. Now, this was also around the time that the movie The Secret came out. So those who aren't familiar, it was a total craze in the late 90s, early 2000s. And it was really my first deep dive into the topic of law of attraction and affirmations and intentions. And I was one of those people that was obsessed. I would spend hours crafting the perfect affirmation that aligned my intention. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I had a real understanding of the principles, and at the time I didn't realize you needed teachers to help you comprehend this stuff. So like many things in my 20s, I grew frustrated and abandoned it altogether, or so I thought. As my 30s started to come around, the boom was going bust, and the company, a different startup I was with, was shutting down. And I had experienced quite a bit of loss, just personal loss, family losses in a short amount of time. So I wanted to be closer to family, so made the logical step and moved to Austin, Texas to open a Pilates studio, as one does. So my training for Pilates really helped me to understand the mind-body-spirit connection from a physiological perspective. and also how emotional healing and intentions all play out together. And I was able to start really processing the grief I was dealing with, and it was a difficult time, but also a really meaningful and healing time. About 5 years into that, I realized I was more of an entrepreneur than a Pilates teacher, even though I loved the teaching. And I started my next company, Blue Avocado, and I started it with my sister and a good friend, and really with the intention to empower people to live a more reusable lifestyle. So creating products that help to eliminate disposables and really functional and good-looking products. And it was a really exciting time as we gained national distribution in the Container Store and Whole Foods and Target and Office Max and Office Depot. But it was a really stressful and overwhelming time as well. So several years into Blue Avocado, I was just your stereotypical stressed out entrepreneur on the verge of burnout and just desperate for some peace in my life. So I did what I know a lot of people do. I started to Google. And I landed on my first meditation training with Deepak Chopra in the Chopra Center. And it was a game changer. I learned that I had some real misconceptions when it came to meditation, primarily that it's okay to have thoughts. It's the nature of the brain to have thoughts. And I also learned that meditation and mindfulness was really helpful in soothing our nervous system. So I was able to come back from that and really cultivate a daily practice which fit my lifestyle and was experiencing some pretty tangible benefits. I was sleeping better, just felt more connected in my personal and professional relationships, and just really feeling calmer and happier. And then on Valentine's Day 2013, I first heard the words. I was lying on the examination table, and it happened in a little kind of unlikely way that I had found a lump in my breast, and I had just gotten the ultrasound, and I was watching the doctor's face, and I asked her point blank, and I said, "Is this cancer?" And she said, "I do, due to the size and nature of the tumor." First time I heard that, "I do think this is cancer." And they wanted to perform an immediate biopsy, so I knew it wasn't good. I broke down on the table, and just as I was about to see that needle enter my breast, I did the only thing I knew to do in that moment. I focused on my breath. In and out. In and out. Just like in my meditations. And I was overcome by the sense of peacefulness throughout my entire being. Now, I was aware I was having a potentially devastating moment, but there was really no denying that peacefulness. And I flashed back to the meditation training, and I remember the teacher saying, as much as it's about the seated practice, it's really what's happening in our brains and our bodies, so we can be more responsive versus reactive and resistant in uncertain situations. As I felt that peacefulness through my body, I was like, oh, this is why people meditate. A couple days after processing my diagnosis, I sent an email to my family and really just highlighting the guidelines and kind of complementary practices that I felt were important to me. And one of those was viewing my cancer through a lens of love versus a battle to be fought. Now, this wasn't because I was naive to the hardship of cancer. I had seen a lot of cancer in my lifetime. It's because I needed to balance that reality through a more compassionate lens. So sure enough, that email also helped me to realize that cancer wasn't my crisis point. It was a landing pad to integrate all of these tools and mind-body practices I'd been exploring my entire life. It's almost as if I had been in training for this exact moment. So while I'm grateful to be cancer-free today, there's no question that was the hardest thing I've ever had to encounter. But it was and continues to be a very meaningful and transformational time, and really a period of profound creativity for me. So what's this all have to do with intention? Well, let's dig in. I love this definition by Sharon Salzberg that says intention is about the overall everyday vision we hold of what matters to us, what we believe is possible for us. Now, I love this because it's not about some future projection or wish. It's about rooting our intention into our everyday, into the present moment. Now, most simply, an intention is a focus, and that old cliche where your focus goes, energy flows, is absolutely true. And we all know this in this room. The creative process is intention and action. But there are many schools of thought that say it's really important to feel your intention at a really visceral level. So we're not coming just from our heads and our thoughts, but our hearts, where it's not just about external validation, but internal alignment. Spiritual teacher Michael Beckwith says that we cannot have what we do not become vibrationally. Well, what does that mean? For me, that means we have to align with the divine, however you wish to define that. Spirit, source, God, intuition, instinct, love. It doesn't matter what the label is, but just the resonance. And as we do this, it's literally rooting our intention to our highest good, which is important to remember because when you approach intention with this clarity, what starts to happen is whatever's not in alignment is going to start to come up. And this can be confusing, almost like our intention is working against us. But if we know that it's in our highest good, our intention really does just become an opportunity to accept whatever outcome in our highest good and an opportunity to grow, transform, and evolve. When I chose to see cancer as a love journey, technically that was an intention, but it was something more. With so much outside of my control, it was about survival. And for me, it wasn't my logical mind that got me there, because frankly, my logical mind was saying, how did this happen and what does this mean? The only way I can kind of make sense of it was coming from that deeper sense of connection and awareness. And for me, that really was the guiding force. I know that presence has been with me all along. I think I was just finally ready to listen and to pay attention. And honestly, I'm only now really beginning to appreciate how love is my intention through cancer really played out in some pretty difficult moments that frankly could have been considered the opposite of love. So for instance, when I found out I needed to have a bilateral mastectomy, and my sisters and friends all got together to throw me a bye-bye boobs brunch, and to have that time of sharing and connection and laughter, that was love in the midst of loss. Or when my oncologist sat me down and said that because the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes, I would need 6 months of chemotherapy. Knowing that was my biggest fear, she looked at me, put her hand on my shoulder, and said, "We're in this together." That was love right in the face of fear. Now I know these are emotional examples, and I don't mean to scare you off, but merely to provide a perspective that when we approach intentionality with this depth, it has the opportunity to be a fierce practice of awareness, alignment, and accountability that can create meaningful transformation in our lives. So how do we go about cultivating intention from this place? So just like a flower needs air, water, and fertile ground to prosper, so do our intentions. So the first step really is choose your focus. What is your seed? Now, the $1 million and the hot body would be nice, but what's underlying that? Is it worthiness, vitality, health? What are the possibilities that your highest self would choose for you? What would feel fulfilling? The second step is to plant the seed. Now, I teach meditation, so obviously this is going to be an important step. But I have to tell you, it was the missing piece for me all of those years. When we're meditating, we're entering that state of relaxed awareness where we're accessing deeper states of consciousness. And this is where healing and recovering from our lifetime of stress really does happen. So the ideal time to do this really is after your meditation, when you're in that relaxed and receptive state. When I was going through chemo, I continued with my daily meditation, but at the end, the last 5 minutes or so of my meditation, I would really visualize the chemo coming into my body as a loving and friendly energy versus poison. And really just feeling all of my cells transmuting with love and light, and feeling my body with warmth and expansion, and really feeling this. It's as if I was training my body. So when it came to infusion day, this is what I came to expect. It didn't mean I didn't experience the side effects. I did. But I was able to respond and meet them in a more responsive and compassionate and patient way. So now that we've planted the seed, this is where we have to let it blossom. So this really does require surrender and detaching from the outcome, which I know is easier said than done. So those of us that like to be in control, this can be really frustrating and bring up some difficult emotions. But if we start to think of emotion as literally energy in motion, and we can learn to express versus suppress, we're literally transmuting that energy so we can allow for more divine flow to enter into our lives. For example, I can't tell you how many times I've had the ugly car cry. You all know what I'm talking about. The heaving, the snot running down your nose, not caring who sees you. But because love was and continues to be my primary intention, I had to be prepared that its opposite of fear needed ways to be expressed and released from my body. And let's be honest, who doesn't feel better after a good cry? So I'm not saying you need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough with your intention, but just to welcome the wisdom of your experience. So now that we have all the pieces, how about we plant some seeds? So I'm going to take you guys through a very short and simple practice. I'll be guiding you every step. And bonus, this may sound a little woo-woo, but it's a new moon and a solar eclipse. So this is, from a universe perspective, like the ideal time to be planning your intention. So the universe is in alignment and just ready for you to do your thing. So I'm going to ask you guys to get comfortable. A few reminders that even though this is a short practice, most likely your mind will wander, and that's okay. So your only job is to notice when you've wandered and come back to this moment, your breath, my guidance. For the sake of just kind of general intentions, I'm going to lead you guys through the intention of peace. I'm a believer that peace is an inside job, and the more we focus on it internally, we really do start to see it reflected in our external. So you're going to hear the secret bells ring once to get us started, and then 3 times at the end, and I'll kind of bring you guys back to the moment. So everyone ready? So go ahead, you can start with a downward gaze. If you're comfortable, you can go ahead and close the eyes, and let's get started. So just beginning to bring your awareness into your body and into the room, and just noticing the physical points of contact between your body and the chair, your feet on the ground. And with the eyes closed, we may become more aware of the sounds in our environment. So just welcoming all the sounds we hear. the obvious sounds of my voice, the air, and then beginning to just tune in to the more subtle sounds, your breath, your heartbeat, and just taking a moment to just observe the quality of your breath in this moment without having to do anything. It might be choppy or smooth, shallow or deep. And then we'll begin to bring some more intention to the breath as you begin to inhale and exhale through the nose. If breathing through the nose isn't comfortable, feel free to adjust. And just noticing the cooler air as you inhale and the warmer air as you exhale. And then dropping the breath just a little bit deeper to your belly. And on your next inhale, feeling the belly expand as if you're blowing up a balloon in your stomach. And then exhaling as you feel the belly fall. And just continuing for a few more breath cycles at your own pace. As it feels comfortable for you, beginning to lengthen your inhale and your exhale. And as you continue to breathe like this, just acknowledging that natural pause that exists between your inhale and your exhale. You can keep your eyes closed or a downward gaze as you just begin to bring your awareness back to this moment, wiggling your fingers and your toes, checking in with your body, seeing if there's a movement or stretch that feels good, perhaps a neck roll in one direction. So you feel that? This is your natural state of being. This is your intention taking root. Now, I'm not naive to think the moment you walk out this door, you're not going to hit traffic or hear the news. But you can now begin to think of these things as mindfulness triggers. And every time you're reacting to something external, it just becomes a cue from your body saying, hey, can we find that place of peace inside again? Can we take a breath? So I wanted to finish just by sharing a few of my go-to intentions and really why they resonate for me. I am loving and joyful. This really is just about generosity and gratitude. I am abundant. This isn't just about money, but friendship and laughter and connection and joy. I am peaceful. It's about inviting ease and flow into my life. And I am the light. For me, this is kind of the only one I need because it represents that connection to Source, because I believe, to myself, and to others. Thank you.